Again, it's good to be with you. We're going to continue to talk about the Sermon on the Mount. The text for today is Matthew 5:21 through 31. I want to talk about that text in just a minute because for me, it may be the most difficult section of the Sermon on the Mount. But I want to start with something that happened to me when I was a student at the seminary in the late 1960s and early 1970s. When I was in graduate school, my primary area of focus was church history, but I became fascinated with pastoral care. We didn't phrase it like this, but you might think of one being your major and the other being your minor. In pastoral care, you had to take what is called clinical pastoral education, or CPE, at a hospital. I chose Central State Hospital, the state mental hospital outside of Louisville. And I want to tell you, it was an experience that I will never forget. We arrived the first day and I was assigned 2 units. One was a unit of women who were in a locked ward. The second unit was the alcoholics who were meeting there at Central State. The first day I went into the locked ward of the women, I met a woman who immediately started cursing me out. Now, I've had people who've disagreed with things that I've said in churches, but that was the first time I'd ever had anybody who had cursed me out. I asked the nurse later, I said, what was all of that about? This woman was molested as a teenager by a minister. And when you walked onto the ward with your chaplain's badge, you reminded her of something that she has never been able to get over. I went to the alcoholic unit, and it was interesting because they were run by Alcoholics Anonymous, even the leaders of the group. And one of the things that people who are involved in AA, even recovering alcoholics, will say, you don't understand what we go through unless you've been an alcoholic. The leader, the director of the ward at the alcoholic unit, said to me on the first day, you don't really understand what it is to be an alcoholic. You don't need to come here and meet with us. We can handle things ourselves. I went back and told my supervisor what had happened. I said, I think I had just been thrown out on the first day of the alcoholic unit. He said, no, you haven't been thrown out. He said, I want you to go over there and I want you to find a way to be their minister. I said, you're not going to call over there and say to them they have to go over there and you say to them whatever you need to say to be their minister. I really was frightened. I went over to meet with the director and I said to him, you don't know, but I need this more than you need this. I grew up in a home where my dad was an alcoholic. When I was 12 years old, it was Alcoholics Anonymous that became so significant to him. I want you to know, I'm not going to say to you, I understand anything that you're going through, but I just want to come over here. I want to sit in the room with the men. I'm not going to come over here and try to be a professional minister. I just want to relate to them. It really turned out to be a wonderful experience. I can't say that he was excited about my coming over, but he said, I understand. I want you to learn from us. And I learned so much. I remember the supervisors that I had. I still remember their names. Both of them are deceased now, Clarence Martin and George Bennett. I remember Clarence Barton saying to several of us one day, listen, don't think too highly of yourselves. There's not anything given the right circumstances that you can't do to destroy your ministry. And then Clarence Barton's famous biblical quote, all of our righteousness is as filthy rags. I think that's the only thing he knew in the Bible. I had to go look it up. It was in Isaiah 64:4. But he kept saying to me and to others, don't you understand? Don't think too highly of yourself. I thought about this when I read these words in the 5th chapter of Matthew. What surprising, stunning things Jesus says. Thou shalt not commit murder, you know that. But if you carry around anger in your life, you really have committed murder. You've committed murder to your own self. Thou shalt not commit adultery, but if you carry around lust in your heart, you really have destroyed your own self. If your right hand offends you and it's a stumbling block, cut it off. If your right eye offends you, take it out, gouge it out. I met one man at Central State Hospital who took those words of Jesus literally. He had one day taken a knife, stuck it in his eye, and then cut off 3 of his fingers before the pain became unbearable. I thought to myself, how careful you and I need to be when we deal with Scripture. There are some people who are listening to us who are very vulnerable. And those who say that we take the Bible literally, they don't understand that there are some people who will actually gouge out their eye and try to take off their hand. Now, those are stunning words. It's not enough just not to commit anger, not to commit murder, but to have anger in your life, the kind of vengeful anger that just eats away at the center of your being. Jesus said, that will destroy you as much as murder. Go around with lust in your heart. You may as well have committed adultery, because what is happening inside of us, Jesus is saying, is that these things will destroy us from the inside out. It's one thing to obey the law. It's one thing not to murder, not to commit adultery. But I want you to see what Jesus is doing. He is fulfilling the law when he says to me and to you, if we have these things inside of our lives, they will eat us up and they will destroy whatever witness we have. When our son David was diagnosed in 1983 with a brain tumor, I was well aware. I'd heard about ministers who had these kinds of problems in their families, how it had destroyed marriages, the pressures. I had been in Augusta for 3 months. Our daughter was 13. I'm so grateful that I married way beyond myself, because I learned during this difficult time what a prize Diane was to me, and how together we were able to make it through this great difficulty. And I really think the marriage is even stronger. It's so easy to tell people, don't do this and don't do that. Jesus said, that's okay. But look at what's going on the inside of your life. Look at what you're feeling. Clarence Barton was right. All of our righteousness is as filthy rags. I wish he had gone on to quote to us the 8th verse. We're the clay, and God, you are the potter. Whatever hope we have is in you. You change us on the outside, but that's not enough. You change us on the inside. And that's the hope that you and I have.